to the Thames Commander District Council meeting of the 28th of June 2022. Apologies, noting that John has to go to Hamilton for a court appearance, and so that apology will take place. Did you like the way I put that? I wasn't sure if anyone was going to pick up on that. Just to give some evidence. And so are there any other apologies?
Rekha for being here, but I think Rekha is online.
She's online, yeah. So that's great. Thank you, Tony. So there being none in effect, so I'd like to carry on. Someone to move those? Yes. Move the apologies. Thank you, Sally. Seconder?
I'll do it.
Thank
Robin.
you. Thank you, Robin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. There's no public forum, I take it. Any items not on the agenda? There being none, any conflicts of interest? There being none, we'll go through the minutes for confirmation. So do I have a mover for the Coromandel Coalville Community Board minutes, please?
I will.
I'll second.
Thank you. Moved on, seconded. Sally, any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Mercury Bay Community Board minutes. A mover, Murray. A seconder, Tony. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thames Community Board minutes. A mover?
Robin. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Whangamatā Community Board minutes.
So
mover?
moved.
Thank you, Gary. Thank you, sorry, Terry. Seconded, Gary. And any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Emergency Management Committee minutes. Do I have a mover?
I'll second.
Thank you, Sally. Seconded, Robin. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Audit and Risk Committee minutes. Do I have a mover?
I'll move.
Thank you, Tony. Do I have a seconder? Terry, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thames Commander District Council minutes. Do I have a mover?
I'll move them.
Thank you, John. Seconded, Sally. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. We're now going to go to item 6.1 on page 383, which is the Kopu Marine and Business Facility for a discussion before John leaves the meeting. And so we have Lorna White presenting the item. Do we have a mover?
I'll move that.
Thank you, John. Seconder.
Sally.
Sally seconded that. Thank you. Discussion. Now, Lorna, did you want to say a few... Lorna, did you want to say a few words before we put that up for discussion?
Yes, please, if I could.
Yeah.
Councillors, thank you. I am going to take the report as read. It has been a real jigsaw puzzle putting this one together because we've had to work through numerous stakeholders and agencies and lots of different scenarios. So I just want to thank you for reading it. I won't go into too much of the background, just to reiterate that we have a fully consented project now. We do have a $6.58 million shortfall, and we're well aware of the reasons behind that, which is in the report. The budget that we've got down there as required is what it would be to construct this now. So we've been able to get those prices set with our contractors, and they are fixed for the moment, but there is going to be a time frame where we have to renegotiate those. And I just want to acknowledge Lorenzo Pinel from Urban Solutions, who's got COVID. that is with us, who's been the project manager, who's been doing a sterling effort of working with the contractors. And we've also been involved with our ED team around discussions and negotiations with different agencies about how to fund this shortfall. A couple of things, as you'll be aware in the report, we have been having ongoing discussions with MB, and they are the government department that funded the $8.2 million. They've got an economic development arm called Kānoa, so that's who we've been dealing with. At the moment, again, they're well aware, and we've been having fortnightly discussions about the progress on the project. We have been granted an extension of 3 months to look at how we can address the shortfall, and also there is discussions about potentially some further money, depending on how much we can fund or find ourselves. The DIA funding, again, we have got that in there as well, and that's the Better Off Three Waters tranche funding of 4.04 million. Again, we've been in discussions with DIA, Department of Internal Affairs, which is another branch of the government, just to talk about the viability of this project for that money, and it's looking very favourable. If an application is successful, it could be processed within a matter of days or weeks. We've also had stakeholder engagement. We did host a stakeholder meeting here, and as you're aware, all the councillors were invited to listen and observe that. From the feedback we got from all those stakeholders, the consensus majority was that the will would be for the project to be done now, and to try and find that money now. Throughout just the report, because this was written some time ago, there is some updates that I just want to share with you. I had put in there about the Regional Council Fund, and we had been in discussions and had been signposted that, there is $2 million already ring-fenced for the Shiblo project in the Coromandel. Bruce got a letter last week with acting CE from the CE and Regional Council to say that they still have $4.5 million unallocated in that fund, but there is about a 3 to 4 month time frame to process and decide on whether a project is viable for that. I also referenced in there just about a legal opinion that we've been in discussions about. That just was Simpson Grayson, and what it was just to get some clarifications from an earlier draft that on this report, just to get some feedback on our significance and engagement policy, and more importantly, just about the financial implications, because with just with the amount of money that we may be asking council to come up with. Would that trigger our significance and engagement policy? As I said, that was sort of an email, verbal sort of discussion between our legal counsel and Simpson Grayson.
Hear you.
Sorry, Gary?
You keep cutting out.
Where did you not hear me from?
I know what no, just a bit. You started talking about the legal opinion, then you said something and I couldn't hear what that was about.
Sure. Okay, so on an initial draft of the council report, we just wanted to check we were tracking in the right direction with our significance and engagement policy, specifically about the financial side of things, and whether any of the options would trigger the financial significance and engagement policy. And again, this was just discussions between our legal counsel and Simpson Grayson. What we're saying is just that the initial feedback is that, sorry, where am I going with that? It suggests that the financial impact won't trigger that, but there could be other significance and engagement impacts. So if we want to proceed with a particular option, we will need to just formally seek a legal opinion just to confirm that we are, in the right space with that. And just lastly, on just some other changes in the report, when you look at the scenarios, there is all the different options around funding. The Thames Community Board last week have approved that $1.04 million of their TUGRA 1.04. 1.4, my mistake, sorry, 1.4.
The 4.04 is the Better Off.
That's right, thank you, Martin. 1.4 million from its TUGRA funding, and that's towards funding the shortfall. So that just brings me to the decision today. And so if you, you've gone through it, what we're requiring of council is to have a conversation on two things. One is about whether the project should continue in its full capacity and do the construction now, or whether it should be staged. And the second thing we are asking you to discuss is about the funding and the options around that, and more particularly about the three waters better off funding of 4.04 million. So if you just look at the options table, if you've got any questions about that, the first table, if you have a look through on option 1, you probably see the scenarios A to K. And if you look at probably option B, F and K, they probably reflect what's more relevant now that the Thames Community Board have allocated at $1.4 million. Table 2, if you look on page 390 around the staging of it, scenario A considers applying for the three waters money, but then if you look at scenarios C and G, that takes in the full TUGPRA money as well. If you look also on that table, stage 2, the shortfall reflects if we rated for the boat ramp staging in that 2-year time frame and what it would mean on the district or the local rate. And then
Can you
also,
please slow down? So can you please slow down? You look at racing commentator.
sorry, I'm always told by the
Okay.
media to go
Oh,
fast rather than slower.
This is important stuff and you need to.
Understood.
Okay, so more politely, Lorna, if you could just take it a little slower. It is harder probably for people zooming in, so we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely, no problem. So Gary, do you want me to go through those tables again?
I wouldn't mind if you did, just to clarify them here.
So if we look at the table 1,
Yeah,
and so if you look up, it's on page 388, the options A to K, the scenarios A to K.
A to K, yep.
And so okay, yeah, so that's all the different ways that we looked at how we could
Fund it.
fund it, that's right. But then if you look at scenarios B, F and K, that takes in the 1.4 million, the full amount from Thames. So those scenarios are better reflective of your options because Thames is looking to commit that money.
Right,
Then if you look at table 2 on page 390,
yeah,
scenarios, so scenario A considers if you just wanted to apply for the three water money, and then if you staged it, you'd be able to pay for that first stage with that three waters money straight away. Scenario C and G takes in the TUGPRA, the full amount from the TUGPRA. And then there's all the different ways that you could top it up. So we're trying to give as many different scenarios that we could play around with, around the funding. I just want to also reflect stage 2 of the shortfall below. It reflects that, if we stage 2, so we have to do the boat ramp in the 3-year time frame, that reflects if it was on a district or a local rate, how much that would cost.
right.
Also on the table, there is, if you reference just towards the top, there's a red line, and it's got 680,400.
We're still on option, on 390,
Terry?
yeah,
Yeah, so you'll see there's at the top there, top of the table, there's a red line,
yeah,
and that's the cost escalation. So if we staged it, that 680 would be on top of what we needed to pay because of the cost escalations. So
Right.
the more we delay it, the more cost for staging it, is what I'm trying to say.
And is it that cost estimate going up, that's estimating 10%? I mean, I think we'd possibly be lucky to get only 10% cost increase.
Okay,
Do you want me to just put up the resolutions to have a look at, or do you want to have discussion?
Have some questions for this, please?
yeah.
so questions. Thank you. Who would like to ask? Murray?
I'm asking a question. This is a Thames project. It has always been promoted as a Thames project. Why at this late hour are we getting a district rate component putting in? And where did this come from? Because this has never been a district right through the project. And now we get it. Because this has huge ramifications. Harbours all are locally funded. This has huge ramifications around the district if we're going to put this in here. This is not just isolated to Thames. Why is it coming in 11 o'clock? This seems to be a thing now. We're getting last minute, we're getting them put in. And the second question I want to ask was about the three waters funding, the 4.04. Does this affect us tied to three waters in any way? And if it doesn't, are we going to, when we get the another tranche of 12 million, allocate that on according to a ratepayer take for each ward to the other people, and is that going to be entrenched now?
So I'll talk to it, the three waters first, Murray. So there is no obligation. There's no tie-in or any obligation to be involved in any other, or what would you say, alignment with the government to take this money. It's a no strings, and we've had a discussion with the DIA about that. Mitch, was there anything you wanted to add around?
Yeah, so it's very clear that the funding is completely no strings attached. So that it's just there's two tranches, the first and the second, and this first one is guaranteed. The second tranche, which is after the election, may or may not come depending on what happens with the rewards.
And sorry, just in terms of the ratings, because this is now being consented as a regionally significant infrastructure.
Yeah, but hang on, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what we've discussed with this council. Because what you've done on regionally doesn't concern me. What concerns me is everything from the start of this project.
So let's answer your question around the three waters firstly. Firstly, the first tranche of three waters money was decided by council to be spent both in Mercury Bay and Whangamatā, and that was decided to be spent on water metering, if you recall. So that first tranche of money went into those areas. So whatever the expenditure is going to be, it's going to be a decision of council. This next tranche of money is again a decision of council, and we are able to allocate that according to where we see the most need. And in this situation, I fully support the Coastal Marines precinct structure, and because the consent has been granted, we must absolutely go ahead with this project. And I see a far better return on investment for this project being backed by the district than 5 holes of a golf course at Matarangi. So,
but your worship, with all due respect to your argument, you're talking about water, which is district funded. We're talking about a local project here, regardless of what anyone says.
So
this
you
is a
asked a
local
question
project.
around the three waters allocation of money, Murray. So I'm explaining how that first tranche was allocated.
Yeah, but your logic with your worship is not correct.
On option B, however, there is a Thames local rate factored in if the district rate isn't acceptable to council. So let's have that debate, because to me, the key thing is the Better Futures money. That's a key decision we have to make. And then the other one is the residue of 130,000 for best case scenario, is that district or local. And as local person, we will not miss out on this arguing over whether the district pays 31 or our local ratepayers pay $1.62. So we acknowledge that argument, and if around the table it becomes important that it's local, well then that's what we will live with, because we too acknowledge that at this point in time, harbours, etc., are locally funded, and we also acknowledge that this was considered a regional thing, but we're not going to die in the water over that, I can assure you.
So for
Yes, just to add to that, I've had calls the other day. We're at a SMP meeting in Tairo, and both Tairo and Paanui said we've paid for our wharfs and boat ramps, $2 million, $3 million, and they're a bit concerned about having to fund this as a local project. So that's the first thing. Second thing about the three waters money is the $4 million is, like, I'm quite open to the fact that it could be used for this as long as it's tagged in a way, but already just got a feeling that next year, if there's a government change, the $12 million may not happen. So if that doesn't happen, that sort of leaves this money sort of at one place and no options for any other spend on the district, which is a concern, really. Is that the feeling I get? If the government changes, the money may not be available?
So this fund is only, applications are only open until September. And so there's quite a short window to make use of this first tranche of funding. And then, you know, it's just pure speculation as to what might happen in the future with the second tranche of funding.
Gary, then Martin. Gary,
Yeah, I keep having coming up. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I keep coming up poor network quality. I have this cutting out all the time. In regard to the money spent on the water meters, it ran out with Tairua, Pauanui, and Whangamatā never got any spend on them. So that's still in abeyance. And I'm just mentioning that monies go out pretty quickly and they often don't. It was intended to cover all and it only covered part of it. So Whangamatā never got those water meters and that's still to happen. So I just simply mention that.
was there anything else you wanted to ask about? Any questions?
Well, this legal opinion, which is referred to on page 394, have you actually got it?
No, Gary, what I was saying, it was a discussion with our legal counsel, who then had a discussion with Mr. Grierson about the significance and engagement policy and the financial implications. So with some conversations and the initial, and we sent out the draft report, not this one, but a very first draft, to get some feedback on, just see if we're tracking the right way around the financial significance. What they did raise is that if we wanted to look at all the different areas of significance and engagement, they're more than happy to have a look at that more thoroughly.
Well, I just think it's pretty important. This is as complex as anything. It really is complex, and that's the only thing I'm feeling uncomfortable about. We haven't got all the information we need.
Are there any, now Martin?
Yeah, so just wanted to talk briefly to Murray talking about district rate as opposed to local rate. So we have two resolutions here, one being about how much of the construction we want to approve, and we've had huge amount of support from the Thames community being behind the whole project. There's thought that if we only did the commercial or the recreational, then the other stuff wouldn't happen. We've got with the Better Off funding and additionally the LIMBY, we've got potentially 13 odd million from government for a $15 million project, and anyone's argument that would be a no-brainer, but we are completely supporting the full construction. And then the second resolution, or third resolution, is around the internal Department of Internal Affairs Better Off funding. So there's actually not really resolutions here talking about how that 130,000 potential shortfall is going to be funded. And as Councillor Christie said, we're not going to die in the ditch over 31 cents or $1.61. The important thing is picking the full construction and talking about the Better Off funding.
Good point. Thank you, Martin. Tony.
So for start, I support your project and doing it once and doing it right. But I do want to go back and talk about the district funding. So I'm part of the council that moved the rating base to a community empowerment model. And after a lot of discussion about that, because that's what we've got 27 functions of council, splitting it on a pro rata basis, and that was messy. And if I remember rightly, it's me that said, well, the core functions of council are 3 waters, roading and rubbish. Put those into district and everything else is local. As a result of that, Whangamatā took a major hit in stormwater, I think about $140, because they don't really have a lot of stormwater infrastructure. Mercury Bay took a significant hit because we got 80% of the reserves, 80% of the public toilets. And like everyone else, we have spent to build our assets and paid for those locally. So I support the project, but it is a local function, unless you want to go and change the rating policy, the revenue and finance policy, and indeed the significant engagement policy, because it's never been discussed in an annual plan or with any of our ratepayers. So on the basis that this project is funded by Thames, who get the majority of the benefit, because I'd argue that the reserves provide a district and a wider benefit to our communities, as I do with our boat ramps and anyone else's boat ramps, because people just don't generally come and stay in one place. So I support you fully in the project. I was on that meeting, was here, when I hear people say, just go and, council, go and get the money and worry about it later on. And that person's going to speak later on and say, how naive can some people be, as passionate as it might be, So for me, you have my support on the basis it's locally funded.
And so to me, I wonder if a way forward is to decide on the Better Futures money, because without that, and then we go to a local rating or district rating for the other gap. Otherwise, we could talk around this for a long time.
I mean, with your local futures money.
I appreciate that. Perhaps we should be revisiting the decision on Matarangi. Murray.
Well, in actual fact, you know,
No, I don't think we should talk about Matarangi.
Matarangi's got nothing to do with this.
Yeah,
in actual fact, if you take the resolution, I can support the resolution in its entirety, but it doesn't mention the district funding. So if we don't, if it's locally funded, the resolution that we've got, the suggested resolution, doesn't mention anything about a district rate.
right, so
If you say there's no district rate, I can
with your
support that.
permission, can I put in another?
Yeah, I would accept that, Sally, you please amend my resolution.
As far as I'm concerned, number one, we received the Kopu Marine. Two, we approved the
Through the chair, can
policy.
we put the resolutions up on screen
Right,
and we'll just go through and
right.
carry on? Councillor Christie, that'd be good.
Sorry to be
Sorry.
bothered. I'm just aware of time.
Yeah, we've reworked
Me
the
too.
resolutions a little bit to try and make them clearer.
You only get 40 merit points.
The other point I'd say
He's in the right place to pay.
just while I'm speaking is just a correction on what Councillor Gottlieb said. We do have money going to Whangamatā for water meters. We don't have enough money to fund all the water meters with Whangamatā, but there is a substantial amount of funding that is going to Whangamatā. We're busy with that at the moment. So you just that slight correction.
Right.
Right, go back to the resolution. Sally, carry on.
So we received the report. We approve option one, which is the full construction. We approve an application for the 3 waters. I am happy if we want to make a note or another thing there, acknowledging the point that Thames has had their share of the 16 million, and whether that needs to be in the resolution or a note is up to the table.
I'd like it to be included, please.
And then we approve, and I would say from the energy of the room, that we, number 4 reads, we approve option 1 funded from the local rate to maintain the policy that has not been formally split, discussed.
Could we?
Okay. So if everybody's happy with that, then I'll put the resolution. Any further discussion?
So, can we have option 1 shortfall? Because we don't want to.
That's number 4. So
Yeah, sorry, in resolution 4 to say put the word shortfall in there.
Yeah.
Can I also just say, because we are going back to MB to ask them to top up the shortfall as well, so I think probably it needs to have a resolution that council asks us to do that as well.
Through the chair, I don't think that's required because we're in discussions with MB anyway, so I don't think we need a resolution to go and talk with MB. I think councillor change is a good one because it makes it clear that we're talking about shortfall coming from local rates. Yep.
So that's what we're voting on, yeah?
Well, there's only one more point, which around the table, which is around the acknowledgement that this is Thames' share of the 16 mil. And just in terms of fairness, does that go in the resolution or does that go in as a formal note at the end? Someone would need who's better at process than me to.
well, I just raised the point, Sally, that we haven't talked about a share of anything. So we've just made the decisions on the government funding as they've come up. So we haven't created a council formula for any of that.
I would argue that because we don't know what the future projects are and we don't know how much money is coming, we would be doing our ratepayers in this ward an extreme disservice to cut them out of any future funding, because we also don't know what the different projects are going to be around the ward. So I couldn't agree with that.
Okay.
I've got a beauty.
Right. Well, exactly. And I like to think that we were all mature enough in our roles as district councillors to look at a district project and weigh them up against the merits with the funding we have available, rather than trying to cut ourselves off at the knees now.
Just one point, if I can. I haven't said a lot here, but I do think because this council table is going to change dramatically in a few months' time, that I would like something put into the resolution or noted that a fair amount of the 3 waters money has come to the Thames ward, and that should be considered in any future decisions.
So why don't we make it a note?
A note would be fine.
But we've already had other 3 waters funding, which has exceeded this amount.
I don't think we voted on that. That was decided to use the water meters.
And the difference, I think, for me, Sandra, even though my fear on arguing backwards, I'm actually arguing fairness, is that that is a formally district funded rate.
Yes,
Yeah.
Because it was about water.
Yeah.
So that is my fairness and equity point,
Yeah.
which, and I'm not trying to advocate against Thames, I'm trying to maintain
Fair.
the integrity of our
That's the
policy.
point I made your worship before.
So having it mentioned in some way is important.
So how about a note?
A note's fine.
And make the violence.
Yeah.
Well, then it does raise that while Murray makes that point, it does beg the question around Matarangi's decision, if that's the case.
Matarangi water is district, Sandra.
Yeah.
Water is a district function.
she's talking about.
And Matarangi was local, should have been local.
Leave Matarangi out of the discussion.
Okay.
I think a note, this council cannot tie the next council. I think
Yeah.
can't put it in a resolution. It has to be a
No,
note.
agree.
No, to put a note there and it's done.
Yeah.
So the principle fine as long as they don't apply to Whitianga.
What was that?
Okay.
No, okay, let's move on. I'm just aware of time.
Okay, so is there any further discussion around the resolutions? Otherwise, I'll put the resolution.
Well, and that, can
Okay.
I just one thing? It's number 5 talks, request the chief executive proceed with the project subject to legal advice on significance and engagement. Now, I think that might be something that needs to come back to council. That's what I'm just saying. We've got to do due diligence, and I'm very worried that we're leaving a provision like that. We don't know what the legal situation is, and I as a council, I'm quite scared of making a resolution until we know what the legal advice actually is.
Well, I think that the chief executive will make that decision about bringing it back. We've still got to get the MB money finalised and the Better Future. So it's like this is a step in the process. And I would think the whole thing will come back to council at some stage because we've still got 2 variables to lock in before we have the press go button. So this isn't the end of the discussion. This is the beginning as far as I see it, so that staff can go away and literally lock in that Better Futures money and the MB money.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Can I ask you this, Chair? Bruce, where do you sit on this?
So through the chair, no, I'm comfortable with it. I think, picking up on Councillor Christie's point, if we're coming back to council, we're going to need to do that very quickly because we need to keep this on moving, particularly around the contract rates. So as you guys, as councillors are well aware, rates all over the countryside and all over the world are escalating rapidly. So we've got rates that are confirmed through until kind of early July with the contractors, and we've got to really want to lock those in and commence this work. But we obviously have got discussions going on with MB, which we should hear about any day now around this additional funding for MB.
So
again, it is a challenging one. As Lorna said, we've got a whole lot of jigsaw pieces, jigsaw puzzle pieces that we're kind of trying to, keep moving and make sure we're keeping everyone safe and we're moving in the right direction. The legal advice is around the significance and engagement.
It's important to know, though.
It's important to know, but it's not something that.
So I'll just add to this. Look, I think staff have done an incredible job in just getting to the point that we've got to. The legal advice and significance and engagement. The significance and engagement is predicated around $5 million plus in terms of dollar value, and we've been out for significant consultation processes on this project to the point of getting consent. So this has been well traversed publicly. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
That's you, Sandra.
Okay, let's put the vote.
There's somebody speaking in the background.
Speeding ticket.
I'm not.
No.
To be paid with.
Anyway, so I think this has been well traversed in terms of significance and engagement. And as I say, it's 5 million plus, but I don't think there's any need for any further discussion unless somebody's got anything else they want to raise.
Well, only as a comment, since you've raised Matarangi, Sandra, $1 million triggered consultation through the significance policy, just as a sideline.
We have changed policies.
And that
I
was,
understand that.
but that was, that was,
That was 5
that was
million
well,
then, so don't,
Yeah, right.
Sandra keep raising her stuff.
Matarangi was well traversed.
No, I don't,
And you're raising, not us, Sandra.
Okay, I'm putting the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
I'm
Moving on to item 1.
can I just give my apologies? I'm not very well. I'm going to go home and go back online, so I'll be absent for probably half an hour or so.
Drip line.
Yeah, I'm just recovering from COVID and I'm
Thank
very
you,
well.
Yeah,
Sally.
you're tired.
Thank you, Sandra. I'll leave the meeting.
Thank you, John.
Safe travelling.
Appreciate you both coming in, knowing you've got under pressure for other reasons. So thank you, Sally. Really appreciate it. Okay. So we're now on to 2.1, page 85.
Let them go.
That's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to ask for a mover.
And I both raised my hand.
Mar-
I note in summary, a community service award will be awarded to people living within the Thames Coromandel district area whose services to their community have been outstanding. There are some outstanding services to the community being done by people who might have a property in Thames Coromandel and they have huge amount of work they've done in the community. So are we going to exclude those people being nominated?
So no, that's in the summary. It's not in the resolution, but we can change the wording of the summary or just make a point that it's rate person living or paying rate, is it?
Owning a property.
A ratepayer.
A ratepayer.
Who's in charge of this one? Ariana.
Yes, we can change that, that's fine.
Okay, it was just, it's a small point, but there's some very good people
No,
that
it's a
could
good
miss out.
point.
Yeah.
It's a good point. We need to clarify they're either living or own property within the district. Lorna, can you give some advice on this? Some clarity around the wording for eligibility.
Should just be a ratepayer.
Ratepayer.
Resident and ratepayer.
No, or.
Not all people living in the district are
We've just
ratepayers.
given one to a guy who lives in both parts, but his contribution to this district has been huge.
No, Tony, not everybody is a ratepayer that lives in the district.
Your residents and ratepayers.
Resident or ratepayer.
Residents and ratepayers. Okay,
Or
sorry.
ratepayer. Is what I said.
Yeah, I can make that change, that's within the criteria, so we can get that. Helen?
So what are you saying is the criteria? Just for clarify that for me finally. Resident and ratepayer.
Resident or ratepayer.
Or ratepayer. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Is that meet your query, Gary?
It meets inclusivity, yes, thank you.
Thank you. No, it's a good point. Okay. So Murray moved that. Is there a seconder?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Thank you, Terry. Okay, any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against, carried. So adoption of the annual plan, page 90. Do I have a mover?
I will move.
I'll second it.
Moved, Tony, seconded, Robin. Is there any discussion?
Move Tony.
Yeah, move Tony, yeah.
Oh,
I
sorry.
have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Finding them. So hi Kate, how are you?
Hey, good, thank you.
Kate, when we're talking, sorry, on page 7 of the consultation, well, of the document, and a couple of places throughout the document. There's the discussion and we had a resolution to change the fee for the injected insulation.
Yes.
And it's referred to in several places in this document as being a new fee, whereas that actually isn't really what we did. We didn't charge a new fee. We actually just changed the fact that we don't charge for an inspection now. So I just wondered if the wording could be changed.
Right, it was introduced through the consultation as a new fee. So that's where that wording's come from. But yeah, we can certainly make, under the resolutions, we've got some leeway there to adjust, to make some minor adjustments. So we could relook at that to make it clear, but it was introduced through the consultation as a new fee.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was also just sort of done as like a flat fee. So instead of it having to be dependent on the amount of work done and all the rest of it, it was just a flat fee for that rather than a building permit type fee.
Yeah, I'll need to recheck the wording in the schedule, but because it's not my area of expertise, but there are some conditions there. So I think, if there is a lot of additional work, then our team operate on that cost recovery basis. So would possibly charge additional hours, but certainly, there's that option, I think, for checking or for adding in additional fees if it's needed. Through your deliberations, we did take out, if a business was code mark certified, we took out the need for the on-site inspection cost.
So we can potentially, we can only make section 16 adjustments, which are minor adjustments. So therefore we could do just maybe a small note of clarification. Did you raise this with anybody prior to today, Robin, at all?
Well, no, because I haven't seen this document until it came out with the agenda packet.
Right. Okay. The expectation is that these things are raised sooner rather than later for staff to be able to address them. But that's okay.
I'll recheck the wording and just see if between myself, communications, and our building team, if we need to add in a little explanation or remove the word new. It might, as long as it's minor, we can give it a little tweak.
Well, I'm not suggesting any major tweaks. I think just a minor tweak would be slightly more representative of what I thought the reality was. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other queries? Terry?
Yes, I've got one. Yes, it's all around the boating of Whangamatā, and because you've got no daily boat parking fee, the fee is for a launching and parking fee only $115. And that means the person who brings his boat to the beach, launches his boat and takes his trailer home is expected to pay a fee when there's no ramp at Whangamatā. So this is a real issue for our locals, and I've raised it, but it's still in there. So it's a concern that there's no daily parking fee for our boat operators because we don't have a ramp.
Yeah.
Tony?
I don't think, like this has been going on for years. Is the fee for launching, is it for parking, is it for both? And from a legal perspective, we can't charge for the launching, as I understand it. So for me, Terry, I would think that if you drive your boat down and put it in the water and take your trailer home, you pay nothing. It'll only be if your car or your truck and trailer or your car and trailer is left on the reserve, because that's the only possible way anyone can check up. So for us, when the wardens go around, whenever they do that, it's only those cars that are parked that get pinged if they haven't got a permit. So that would be what as I would see it. I think your joke is if they're not going to leave their truck and trailer on the reserve,
No,
they won't pay anything.
but often so this is the problem, because that's how it used to be in the old place. Only ones parked there had to put a fee.
Correct.
And then they could go home.
And that's how it still is, because we can't charge.
But now they're not talking that now.
So through the chair, so we do have a launching fee and a parking fee as well. So it's the combined one, I think, which is what Councillor Walker's talking about, 115.
Yeah, that's the combined one.
Combined launching and parking.
And what we're saying is that there's no launching fee. So
And parking fee.
There is a launching fee, so
we haven't got a boat ramp, so you can't have a launching fee at a boat ramp, which is launched off the beach.
Yeah. Which the other thing I'd say is that we went through this during the deliberations of the annual plan. So So I hear the point you're making. I know there's been a number of conversations with staff trying to work their way through it. It's not an easy one. It is challenging, and I know we're just trying to get some consistency across the district, which is which is difficult. But I'd say that we've been through all the discussions during the deliberations, so.
So what's the deal is what Tony's saying, that you bring your boat down and launch it, you don't have to pay anything?
No, so we will be.
No, no.
We will be, so there will be some enforcement checking around the launching. That's what was proposed through the annual plan. As part of the LTP, we said in the annual plan, the next annual plan, we'll look at this. We went through and did a whole lot of work, and workshopped it. We spent a lot of time working on it. We had the discussion of the deliberations. We landed where we landed. And I think your point was, I think you made your point pretty clear with the deliberations as well, Councillor Walker. So, yeah, it ended up where it ended up effectively.
Yeah, I think it'll be difficult to enforce, but anyway, see how it goes. So apart from that, I'm supportive of the annual plan as it stands.
Thank you, Terry. Any other questions or queries? If not, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. So we go on to item 2.33, review of the traffic control bylaw 2017, page 216. Gotta get there. So okay, so this is going to be interesting. Who's Meg? So welcome, Leslie and Meg. So so do we clearly need to renew our bylaw?
So there's no statutory timeframe to review the bylaw, but staff have identified that there are some improvements that could be made to the drafting of the bylaw.
Right, okay. And they're pretty critical, are they? Okay, carry on.
So you're saying the bylaw's not consistent, is that right?
So there are some drafting improvements that could be made to this bylaw. It would be best practice to make those now.
Okay. Yep.
So would you like a resolution that we approve 1, 2, 5 and 6, I think are the clauses?
Yes, but I guess if there's going to be improvements, Murray, it's just moving the whole resolution, all the resolutions. And
leave it to staff.
Pardon?
Move 1, 2, 5 and 6 and then we leave it to staff to go through and do their thing.
Yeah. Okay. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tony. I actually think this is going to be quite a big job, and yeah, I'm just hoping that
Can I just ask a question? Where's the government sit on this? Do you think this is part of a process that they're taking over this side of business, or I just can't understand where it's all going. The government's talking about speed limits and roading and all that. How's this engaged with what we're trying to do here? We're going to have to go back and look at this again, or?
See on local roads.
Yeah, but they're taking over those as well, the speed limits.
So speed limits isn't covered by this bylaw. We have a separate speed limit.
I know it's not covered by it, but I just wonder how far down the track do you see this going?
I'm not sure what central government is planning to do in terms of other traffic regulations.
Speed limits on our roads.
well, look, if I look at if you look at like number 4, resolution 4, I'm actually struggling to find any reason for doing anything. It just looks to me like we're sort of tinkering around because we can, and I'm just wondering what's the problem you're trying to fix here. As you quite clearly said that there's no statutory time frame for reviewing the bylaw.
Yeah.
So what issues are we trying to address? I mean, if you look at number 4, it's nothing. So but procedural stuff. It's nothing to actually do with the roads themselves. So what are the issues with our roads and with our traffic control, etc., that we're wanting to remedy? Because if there aren't any, why would we bother? There's a huge amount of time and staff time and expense involved in doing something like this. And I'm just not seeing clear rationale for bothering, to be quite frank. If it was something like actually putting our designated roads, giving them proper title and putting them where they're supposed to be, that would be a different matter, because there are significant areas of road which are actually not on the designated line in which they're supposed to be on, and that could cause some problems if someone is of a mind to do that. But Tony, I see you had a question. I'm wanting to put that out there. So while you've moved it and seconded it, the reason why I was hesitant at the beginning, I just couldn't see the real reasoning for needing to do it. Tony.
Well, for me, it would help us. So we have an issue, I'll just have one issue in Whitianga. So Joan Gaskell Drive, people exiting from where the car wash, the gym, 100% electrical are, rather than drive out and turn left and go around the roundabout and head back down Joan Gaskell Drive to go wherever they're going, they're too tired, so they take a shortcut over it. And so you may as well be in Beirut on a bad day, because it's that carved up in mud, it is a disgrace. So when we try to fix it, there's all manner of reasons why we can't, and we don't have a means to do it. So if we had a means, we could have a bylaw that we could do something to stop that happening. So this is local road. So that would help us, because we don't have anything else at the moment. We've been going on about 5 years.
So you're saying that you can't go and put some sort of physical element in the middle of the road, which has a grass strip, to stop people from being able to. I would have thought that you could, without the necessity of doing it.
We've been waiting for 5 years and we haven't had a means to fix it. Clearly we could
I don't see the bylaw being the issue. Leslie.
Thank you. Through the chair, the reason that we are recommending that this bylaw be reviewed is actually because the bylaw isn't clear about what legislation it's made under. That is at the core of the review. So when the bylaw was made, it wasn't clear whether it's made under the Transport Act or the LGA, and we're looking to clarify that. Our legal advice is that it would be best if we reviewed it and clarified that. And while we're going about doing that clarification, we are also looking at the other clauses of the bylaw that could be tidied up. But in the end, that is the core of why we are requesting that this bylaw be reviewed. And because the review date that's in the current bylaw is not really, it says it will be reviewed by 12th of June 2022. But in fact, it doesn't need to be reviewed. We want to clarify some of that.
I understand that. It's more policy more than actual actions.
Yes.
But you do talk about looking at the scooters and the e-bikes and all those things. Would that come into it then? You feel that's?
While we're reviewing, we'll look at the 360. We'll look at it, whether it covers everything it needs to cover.
That's quite an interesting discussion on its own. Okay. Yep.
Okay. Well, that means you're going to have to look at multiple users of access ways, or where you look at designated roads and their underlying titles and where they actually are. Anyway, okay, look, I'm okay with it. It's not going to be my worry. So any further comment, Martin?
Yeah, I'm just Terry's just stolen my point there. I think the stipulation about the bylaw as being applying to bicycles, mobility scooters, e-bikes, e-scooters. Lots of these things have come in recently. So we need to have some things in there for that, because at the moment, like we might say, okay, well, you can't have a skateboard down the main street, but you can have mobility scooters, you can have e-scooters. There's all sorts of clarification, I think, that's needed around that. So yeah, I can definitely see a point. Even just with that alone, for me, is an important thing that needs to be covered.
Okay, any further comment? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. So dog control bylaw and review of the dog control policy, page 264. And I know that Mercury Bay wanted to relook at the use of some of their beach areas in regard to dog control areas. And some dog owners wanted more area designated for dog activity. Do I have a mover?
I'm happy to move.
Terry, seconder.
I'll second it.
Tony, any discussion?
Yeah, I got some discussion.
Murray, then Terry.
All I'm going to say is, having chaired two committees that have done this before, good luck, Rachel. It is a minefield of people wanting personal opinions, and we spent a lot of time trying to get it consistent over the whole council area. And I think that's the only way we can do it. I won't be here when you do it, but good luck, because everyone is pushing their own personal opinions, and it's a minefield.
I look forward to your submission.
So,
Terry.
yeah, so we got a concern over for sure that the current bylaw is that on public holidays, you're not allowed on the beach between 9 and 6. In the middle of winter, when no one's on the beach, it's just a stupid bylaw. So it needs to be looked at over the summer busy period, makes sense. In the winter, doesn't make sense at all. So we'd certainly like to be reviewed to look at a common sense approach to it, and I hope you do that.
Yeah, that's why we also have to look at the policy, because the bylaw can only implement what's in the policy.
Yeah, so it needs to be rattled. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Then I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. So we're looking at 3.1, variation of lease, Order of St John Northern Region Trust Board, 2 Cook Drive, Whitianga. And that's on page 295. So do I have a mover for that?
I'll move, or Murray.
Tony and then Murray. So any discussion? There being none?
Can I just make word?
Sorry,
Can I just
Murray,
say word?
yes.
Can I thank staff that did this, please, for getting it to this council meeting? I really appreciate the work that was done. It came by a community board. We've saved 2 months for St John's, and they were in danger of losing their funding. So I just want to publicly thank the staff for the effort they put in to get this through.
Yeah.
Thanks, Murray.
Very good, thank you. Then any further discussion? There be none. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you, John. Excellent work as always. You're still there for Seaview Ave. Transfer of land at 43 Seaview Ave to Puru. Do I have a mover?
Yep.
Robin, seconder. Martin? Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. We are on to 3.3 regarding Lindsay Road on page 330. Do I have a mover? Nobody's moving this, therefore.
Oh, no, I'll move it. Yep.
You want?
Whangamatā, so you what?
Allowed to move
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah.
Robin, you're moving this. Do I have a seconder? Then I'm happy to second it. So, John, did you have any comment to make about this? Receives a request from and resolves to retain the current freehold unencumbered status of the land. I understand it's commercial, and until the business case, which was requested previously from Whangamatā community, to retain the land for community use. So any discussion? There's no, Gary.
Well, I thought the whole purpose was the community board has signalled it very clearly. They would like this land to go into the reserve, which we discussed before. And the business plan, we are in a bit of a hole, because what's occurred is the Department of Internal Affairs, which is very favourably disposed towards this, have said, until you get the land settled, we can't come up with the funding. And it's the horse and the cart situation. And I can tell you there is huge support for it, and I believed there was for it, so it could become a reserve. Now, the approach of saying, oh, we want to keep it for commercial or sell it, it just ignores Section 40 of the Public Works Act because of the disposal to former owner or survivors. And I know that they are very interested in this. They're just how they're being completely ignored. And the fact is, it seems like the council saying, no, we don't want the land, so we're going to either lease it, or the survivors actually want this to go to reserve so the community can use it. That's what they want, and I think we need to acknowledge this. I don't know if you can hear me. I hear poor quality network coming up. Can people hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
So,
So,
okay, thank you.
So currently the land is has a commercial rental, and so there is a return to council on the use of that land. Robin.
Oh, no, just a couple of things. So firstly, Gary, you know, at the moment, we haven't actually had anything from the owners of the land. No, we've heard you say that the descendants of the owners of the people who donated the land believe this. We haven't seen that, so we have no evidence of it. I feel like it'd be really irresponsible to allow this to be changed into a reserve because we have no new information. We made a huge decision last time we talked about this, which was to defer the sale of the land and request a business case. We have not had the business case. We have not had the feasibility study. We have no evidence to suggest that DIA has said that as of yet. So it just seems like you've already got the time, you've got the inclination, we've got the will, but you actually need to come with further information for us in order to be able to make this decision. We're still not going to sell the land tomorrow. We've deferred all decisions about the selling of the land until we have had that business case. You've still got 18 months left to present that to us. I just don't feel like we need to lock ourselves into something at this stage. Can't see the justification. I went back and watched the community board meeting. There was no discussion. The report that was presented to the community board didn't give me any new information. I just don't feel like it's the right thing for us to do at the moment based on the information we have.
Oh, well said. Thank you, Robin. Terry, and then Martin.
I'd update you. I had a meeting yesterday with the working group, and they've got their concept plan that the community board paid $20,000 for. They've done the business plan that came to council and was over a leased land, and they said they need to do some work. They did the work. Here's the financials that they did. They worked with the council to do. They've got a briefing paper they used, and they go to outside agencies and to look at funding options. They've got two, I can tell you, that are very favourable. They just need the land secured to make that discussion. So they will come to the council with those feasibility studies down the line once they've got some firm funding opportunities. We're not asking council for money here. We're asking outside agencies for money, and that's where the business case is important. So they have done the work. They're doing the work. They want to continue it on. They're asking if we change this designation, allow that land to have some control for or security for funding, this thing will move forward. At the moment, it's marking ground, waiting for that discussion to happen. So I'd like to support. So I don't support the current motion, but I'd like to have an amendment to it if we can.
Well, they haven't tried to persuade us that. Oh, sorry, John.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what Councillor Sinclair has said. There's a chicken and egg here. Terry has alluded to them needing to secure the land to get funding. However, even with that funding granted, that's going to be granted on certain premises that we're not privy to at the moment, because the end use of the land, if it's made reserved, is very restricted. So lots of the applications that they might be, or ideas they might be entertaining for how they might develop this land, just might not come to fruition because it may not be permissible at all.
May not be. That's what they want to work with the property developers to understanding that. This is an option that they really want to look at to allow that discussion to carry on with the funding agencies who have said to them, have some security over the land and we'll talk to you. So talking to council property about getting the right designation for the land, and it might end up being commercial. I'm not saying it's not. This is an option they think is really important for it to happen.
Well, that's where the discussion has to be with council over their proposal, so that we can, John particularly, can see what the best course of action or direction is for the status of the land. Martin.
Yeah, when this came up for discussion last year, I was in support of the idea of it being used for community use, and the resolution that we passed saying that we didn't declare it surplus and that we gave some time. But I hear what John's saying as far as if we change it to reserve and then we find that, well, actually to be able to do whatever the business case and the community use facility is, needs it to be in a different status, then we've kind of shot ourselves in the foot of it. And I still completely support it not being sold and time being given. I just feel that we won't be following the proper process. So yeah, I still really support it being used for community use, but I don't. Yeah, I'm not sure that a reserve would make sense and potentially could be challenged.
Yeah.
Because it would suppose that we were thingy, whatever that word is, going down a particular road already, so I worry that it could be challenged.
Yes, there is that. Tony, and then Robin.
So I agree with what we've heard from John particularly. I'd steer clear of the reserve status, because it has the potential to limit what you can do in it. What I'd suggest is, why doesn't the community buy it? I would say we've had land in Whitianga that we want to develop for council assets, and maybe arts, maybe museums, maybe performing arts, whatever in the future. And to get that where we want it, have just gone and bought it, funded it locally. So now, when we want to go and do something on that land, we can, because it's ours. So for me, I just suggest the community maybe look at it. If indeed, given it was the way the land was acquired, that the people that the original owners are happy that you buy it, but you go and buy it, then you can do what you like with it. That would be where I would be trying to go. But anyhow, it's not me trying to do it. I just take the council at the moment. Insufficient.
And Pound Street,
given what's happened in the past, change direction.
Pound Street in Coromandel is a classic example of that too, Tony. Robin, and then Terry.
Oh, it's just to respond to Terry. You have some documents in your hand, and I'm just, I think you should try this motion again later once the conditions on our last resolution about this, which is where the business case is presented to council, is done, because it seems like you have done the work, but we don't have that information, and so it's really not prudent for us to make a decision on that.
Yeah, if I can talk to that, we actually did the concept plans and a business plan, and they were paid for and put before council. When it was challenged, it was $110,000 lease that was put up as an option, and they looked at that, and Rob Williams at the time said that the OPEX cap budget didn't fit. And that was the discussion, and said to work with council to try and make a financial package that fitted. So they went and did the work, and they've come back, and that's the financial package that they came up with to work with council. And that's the one they're using, not to come back to council to get money, but to go out to outside agencies and talk to them about funding options. And this is an option, I have to tell you, is an option. And all we're going to do is work with property or work with the council to find the best solution going forward. And if it's not having a reserve option, which there are council properties on reserve options now that are run, we'll look at the other options. But we just need to have that facility to be able to work with you to find this working groups prepared to do the mileage and make this happen.
But Terry, doing work and then coming to us without accurate information isn't working with us.
We've done the information. That's what we've asked to do.
To us.
Well, it's not my job to give it to you. It was the working group working with council.
That's all right.
Okay.
The motion be now put. This is a holding pattern motion, and some work be done.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. We move to the next item on the agenda. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate all your work on the properties. Solid waste, 4.1, solid waste, organics, Kerbside collection, consultation findings, 334. And the suggested resolutions are on 335. Okay. So is there a mover?
Yeah.
Terry, are you moving that, are you?
I'm sorry, I'm just reading it. I just, hold a sec.
I'll move. Martin's.
There's two options.
Martin's moving that. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion?
I'm just not sure if we approve this, we're talking about the food collection weekly. So the second week, are we going to have just a straight, I noticed in the paper this talking about organic and inorganic. So what is the second week going to be if we approve this? I just want clarity.
Sorry, what is the second?
Well, this talks about the food waste solution only.
Yeah.
Are we going to collect food waste every week, as I read the paper?
Yeah.
And when I read the other part of the paper, it was talking about the second week, and it's talking about inorganic, I'm dredging the memory, about garden waste and organic and inorganic. So I just want to clarify, so we're going to have food waste 1 week, and the next week is going to be what?
No, sorry. So the options that were part of the consultation was either a food only container. That would be a weekly service. The other two options, one was a 140 litre, what we call FOGO, which is food organics, garden organic, and that would be weekly. Or a 240 litre FOGO, which would have been fortnightly. So those were the three options. So the only fortnightly service was the bigger bin, the 240, which is the same size as your recycling wheelie bin at home. Yeah.
So what are we doing? What are you proposing to do?
So the consultation had a great response. We're really pleased with it. It had 750 respondents, which was fantastic. The majority of the respondents were interested in the FOGO, the 140 litre, which is the food organics, garden organics. There was probably, I think it was 104, 105 absentee homeowners that weren't actually really too interested in having an organic service. I think it was about 40%, I think, said that they didn't want it. So the larger ratio and portion there was actually the permanent residents that wanted that FOGO service. As detailed in the report, there's a lot of our neighbouring councils are doing the food only. It's like Auckland are introducing it next year. Hamilton have already introduced it. Tauranga, Western Bay of Plenty have introduced it. Hauraki are introducing it next year. So all of our neighbouring property councils, have gone with the food only option.
Can I ask, is that with a small bin or the 140?
The small bin. So there's options with the smaller bin to be either 23 litre or 25 litre. And it is literally just the food waste scraps.
So can I just jump in through the chair? See if I can answer what you were kind of asking, which I think Emma's done a good summary of a number of things here. So I think the recommendation here is small food waste only weekly. And then fortnightly you'll have a wheelie bin to replace the blue bag, which is all your other rubbish. So that's fortnightly, and then fortnightly you also have your big recycling bin that we currently have. And you have the glass bin. So that's the kind of model. And just jump in if I've sucked anything up, team. But from my perspective, that's the kind of.
So the like in Whitianga, we'll have a food waste 1 week. Next week, the big trucks will come up, and do the whole collection.
Yeah, so you'll have food waste every week, and then the big trucks will come every fortnight for the other services.
That's what I wanted. That's what I think is logical.
Can I just clarify, in the food waste one, can you put other stuff in there?
Just food waste.
Just food waste. And that 140 bin?
No, it's only in 23.
It's more 23, right?
It's like a little caddy.
Yeah, right.
Little handle. And like as Anna says, I'm only aware of one council that's gone with the FOGO. Everyone else has gone with the food waste only.
Right.
And we had, so whilst we had different results in our submissions, in our consultation, we did have a lot of people submitting. We had a lot of people, as you remember, coming and talking to it. There was a lot of good points raised. We've looked at a lot of things. We're trying to weigh up financials as well, trying to get the best mix. Again, it's another jigsaw. So that mix of things that I just outlined is what we're recommending.
Robin.
Oh, hey, just a question about resolution 2. So it talks about defining the area of collection to be confirmed prior to contract commencement. Does that decision, is that an operational decision? Is that a decision that's made with the contract, or is that our decision? Just, I'm quite aware that this is a service that the ratepayers will pay for, but that not everybody has curbside collection at the moment. So I think in my ward, people who live up the Consultation Valley have to bring their own rubbish down. So where does that decision get made?
It's a council decision.
It is a council, okay.
Because currently we have a solid waste service area. So this model is based on that service area.
Yeah.
But based on the survey, not everybody wants it, and we'll do that as part of the rating consultation later on. Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
So can I just ask I have a couple of queries around this. So if you decide to go down this food only collection scenario, you're going to give a food collection bucket to every household.
Correct. That's correct.
In a service collection area only.
Yeah, an urban town.
Within the collection area.
So it's in a service area collection only. And it's a sort of feeds on from what Robin's saying. So therefore, those people that don't get that service will not be being charged.
No, that's right.
I thought so.
Is that right?
That's correct.
So, and if half of the people in that service collection area don't want it, so you're only getting half them wanting that service, they're going to be paying for it anyway, regardless of whether they want it or not.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
just like water or anything else.
And so, okay,
If you apply it for water, if water passes in front of your property.
It's an availability charge. You can either use it or not use it, but you get it and you pay for it. You make your own mind up that you don't want it.
I think this is a bit different though, because you can actually do something here. It's not just like the taps on, taps off. You actually got to fill this bucket up and take it out the front. And if you go to a place like Puru with 80% of the people are non-resident, and it came through quite strongly in the submissions that they weren't happy to have it, it's going to be quite a difficult sell to them, because if they're going home for the weekend, they're not there for most of the year, they're paying for a service that, well, water's there, they know it's part of the essential service. This is not an essential service. This is just a service for scraps and might have their own compost bin, I don't know. So it's getting a little bit of sort of talk about it in the area for sure.
It is a
and that would be my biggest concern. The huge diversity, and 52% of our absentees, of our ratepayers are absentee, and we're putting up a new service and expecting to charge them all those ones within an urban environment for that service regardless. I'm seriously concerned about this being a very expensive exercise for questionable gain, and I seriously wonder about that. But anyway, I'd love to have seen a trial for a starter, just to get a sense of what it was really going to be like. Murray.
Two things. One of the reasons I asked my question particularly was the likes of Whangamatā, Whitianga, in the off season will only bring those big trucks up once a fortnight. So there should be a considerable saving, because the little truck that is stationed there should be able to do the food waste every week. The next question I'm going to ask, are you going to do like overseas, where provision is made for organic plastic, corn plastic bags, which are biodegradable, so that when you put it in your food waste bin, you put your biodegradable plastic bag in, when they come in, they just tip it out. It's very, very easy to consume a whole lot. Has consideration been made to get those in the supermarkets from council, because that's the way overseas they work, and it's simple.
Do you mean, sorry, the bag inside the?
Yeah, well, you have a bag in your kitchen. You have your container in your kitchen with a biodegradable plastic bag.
They know what you're saying, Murray, but
I just wasn't sure if you meant by itself on the curbside or what.
No. And so what they do is they take those out of the kitchen when it's full up, put it in their biodegradable bin, and then the truck comes along once a week. But it's no good, because people are used to bin liners, and unless you got the compostable bin liner, compostable plastic bag, it just makes it easy.
Other councils have come across too that have the food waste service, because I understand that a lot of the processing facilities can't actually take those liners, like those compostable or biodegradable liners. So what they actually suggest is within the container or caddy itself, you might line it with newspaper or something that is acceptable at the end process.
Well, I can tell you that they're used extensively overseas. They must be available here. Most of them are made from corn.
It's not so much whether the bags are available or not.
The bags are compostable.
Yeah, but the processing facilities, when we've been in discussions with them, they've actually.
Well, I don't know they're doing it. I don't know.
There's different ways of processing food waste, but what I would understand, if we can move any time to a bag such as that, then that makes total sense, because obviously that's.
It makes it easy for the consumer.
Yep, and I get what Anna's saying, is it depends where how the food waste is being processed, and it depends, and I'm not a specialist, so I don't know how, like these corn bags break down, but I know some of the other biodegradable bags need a high temperature to break down, and therefore they're not suitable for post-composting. So, but I think definitely, if we can move in that direction, I think that would be fantastic, because that would be, very useful for people.
Terry.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get my head
Sorry,
around this.
Martin.
It's very subjective, all right? Like in the cities, you can see where people haven't got land to put compost bins and all that stuff. This is really a great idea, but in our environment out here, it's little coastal towns with, is this going to be going to be successful or not? I don't know. I really struggle, especially when half the people here are non-resident ratepayers. There will be a pushback. Are we doing the right thing?
So through the chair, if I can, I've done a lot of talking, so apologies, but good question, Terry. What I would say to that is that our waste assessments have shown that there's a lot of food waste in bags.
Yeah.
So whilst you're right, I know, like I do my own stuff at home,
yeah,
and a lot of properties are big and they can do it. People aren't really doing it based on what the waste assessments show. So I think we're trying to provide another service. And again, to pick up on your previous point you raised, it is a challenge in that some people are not going to want it, but it's that situation that economically it's not going to work if we kind of let people dip in and dip out from it. The other thing I'd say is that if we have situations like we had the last couple of years with COVID, where we get people coming to their batch and spending a lot more time here, suddenly they want to use a service, we have to be able to provide that service, and we have to be able to provide that certainty for our contractors to get the best price possible to provide that service. So again, we're trying to balance all these things up, and we can't go too bespoke down to an individual house level of you opt in or opt out of the service, because then it just.
No, I agree with that totally. So, but you could buy them all a compost bin and forget about it.
Okay,
is there education involved here? Is it an education thing, or are we just doing this because we want to get 50% of the food waste out of the landfill?
We do want to get it out. You're right.
Radio, thank you, Martin.
Yeah, so I would support the FOGO, mostly because I love the work. But I think the idea that you've got your food scraps and then being able to put a handful of grass clippings or leaves, whatever, to my mind makes that it stops just being a soggy mess of food in that bin. And it then means that when it goes to a site, and I'll ask about that in a second, to be processed, then you've already got a better carbon nitrogen mix to start off with. Because otherwise, if you just end up with a whole lot of food, you are going to have to put a whole lot of other stock stuff in there to be able to get it processed into proper compost. The other thing is that the Ministry for the Environment have wondered out loud about having a ban on food waste or organic matter. So I think we're going to be dictated to in a way by what central government. It's no surprise to anyone around the room that that will happen. The third point is just there were some respondents for our own consultation talking about those organics being processed in the TCBC area. I would be really concerned if the truckloads of that product drove across the Puru Bridge and ended up in Hamilton. That to me would you would kind of defeat the whole purpose that we would be getting rid of this valuable resource, taking it somewhere else, and if we wanted it to come back again for our reserves or for selling or further use in as soil enhancement type thing, then we'd be having to pay to get it back again. So I don't know how that can be done. It says in here that it could be expensive and expertise needed. I think we've got the expertise on the peninsula to do that sort of processing, but we need to know what volumes we're talking about. Are we talking about a few tonnes? Are we talking about 50 tonnes? You know, that to me is really going to make the difference as to how it might be processed.
Robin.
As a follow-on from that, does that a decision of where the waste goes once we've collected it, does that now become part of the solid waste strategy that has been developed?
It will be.
Right. So that will
Yeah.
come back as options.
Yep. One of the options we have is because in the current LTP, there is no proposal or funding to develop a processing facility or to give land, or it could be done in 2 stages. Let's say for argument, if we go down the Fogo route, and if that was the preferred option, whatever that gets debated today, then let's say that option gets implemented. So then start with that, but as part of the next LTP process, look at establishing a processing facility, and because we try to do both right now. One, there isn't the funding for it, and and we're not sufficiently advanced in a position to say categorically that that is something we can do. It's something we can look at and do that as part of the strategy, but in the longer term.
Okay, so I'm going to now put the resolution. We have a mover and a seconder. It was moved Terry, seconded Tony. So all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? I'm against. So the motion was carried. Look, I think we'll take a break. Morning tea. It's 10:26. We'll come back at 10:45, 10:45. So morning tea. Thank you, folks. See you at 1:45.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councillors. Thank you.
Sorry?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Councillors.
Is that all right? Thank you very much, Mo and helper. I've forgotten. Anna, thank you. So we'll resume the meeting if we can go to 5 point.
On the increase, so there's no.
Everybody back in now, are they? So we're going to 5.1, which is the asset revaluations for the 2021-2022 financial year, page 368. And Donna presiding.
Good morning, everybody. The 5 issues in this report, they're addressing the flow-on effects, or trying to address the flow-on effects that we've had from the significant cost escalations that we've seen over the last 12 months, and that's still ongoing. Our normal revaluation cycle is at 1st of July. That's when we normally revalue our assets, and then what happens for the 30th of June financial year, we then have to do a fair value assessment of any increases within that time. And if that fair value assessment is getting up to be around 10%, Audit New Zealand don't like that, because basically what they're then saying is if you booked your assets at the value that it was at 1st of July, you will be misstating the value of those assets in your financial statements. So because of the big movements that we've had, and we've looked at what the movements have been, we did, and we were doing the reval at 1st of July. We made a call that to do them as at 30th of June, to do all our revaluations at that point, because it was getting very, very close to the 10%. And what I didn't want to risk was waiting until August and then looking at it then, just as we were going to have our audit, and then the auditors turn around and tell us you have to revalue, then we would be in trouble, because we wouldn't have time to be able to do it. It's quite a big process. So that's why we made that decision to do that. I guess from that, and from the fact that we're revaluing at 30th of June, but the biggest challenge for us is the big price increases. So what that's done, even whether we valued at 1st of July or 30th of June, is pushing the value of our assets up a lot. So therefore, and we use that value to calculate what depreciation we'll be charging for that year. So what that's done is that's obviously, we believe, pushed the depreciation up a lot, and we have to fund that depreciation. And what we normally do is, of course, when we did the LTP, all the estimates that we got and the numbers that we had to work with and the percentages that we had to work with were really, really low. at that point. And, you know, we didn't know, and the market didn't know this was coming, that it came after we'd signed off that LTP. So what that meant is that we budgeted only something like 220,000 for an increase in depreciation for this year. If we don't know exactly what that's going to be because we've got to work through our year-end process, but as I said in the paper, it's very much related to the increase in our assets. So if our assets have gone up by 10%, well then our depreciation probably will turn. That's around $2 million on our depreciation. So we have to actually decide how we're going to fund that, because we've already, you know, today signed off obviously on the annual plan and also on the LTP. We haven't got that money. We haven't budgeted it. So how do we pay for that? That's what this paper's about. And I have given some options on page 371. Yes, there's 3 options there. The first option is that we will have some retained earnings that we could use to fund some of the unbudgeted depreciation. And any shortfall that we had, if we didn't have enough retained earnings, the only other option available to fund would be by loan. And that would be stepping outside of our revenue and financing policy, because in our revenue and financing policy, or our financial strategy, we say what we will use loan funding for, and depreciation isn't one of those things. So we would need to make a Section 80 resolution to do that. The other reason why I'm not recommending doing that is because you'd be doing like just disservice to the future ratepayer, because in effect they'll be paying double for those assets, because they would not only be paying their share of depreciation in future years, they would also be paying off a loan. And I don't think that that's a financially prudent path to go down. And so the other option, the second option there is similar. You could use some retained earnings if available to fund the unbudgeted depreciation, and then you could just elect to not fund any shortfall in depreciation
Right.
we have.
And it came up and the one wasn't there, we'd fund it other ways.
We would just elect not to fund it. A bit similar to what we do. We don't fund the NZTA portion,
right,
or Kotahi portion of our roading assets. Similar type thing. That's a bit similar and different, but that would be that same thing. We wouldn't fund it. So that is an option, and our finance strategy and our revenue and financing policy does allow us to allow council to make those decisions.
So I'm happy to move the resolution, Donna, and I really thank you for all your work on this. I'm happy to move the resolution.
I've got a couple of comments, so
sure.
You can go and move it, right? So for me, I think it's important, because when this stuff goes out, the public think that we don't know what we're doing. So I well recall sitting around this table, like many of us, relying on what knowledge I have in financial markets and in economics, and saying that these numbers that we're dealing with are way too low. They are way bigger than that, and the impact will be way bigger. But that's okay for any one of us who isn't in charge of anything. We are bound to use the best information we get from government agencies, and whether that be DIA or whoever, who are setting a benchmark to work to, and we do, just like we do for resident population or anything else. So we're saying that's not the real picture. We've got 180,000 people on here at this period of time, but no, you've only got 30,000 ratepayers. So I think it's important around any media that goes out is that around this table, we have recognised the issue when it comes time to revalue, because, Murray, for one, very close to that sector, knows what the cost of buildings are. So if the cost of a new one goes up, so does the cost of an old one go up. And so does the depreciation. So for me, I think it needs to be up front and centre. It is funded through rates. And if there's a rate increase to fund it, well, so be it. That is the facts. That is the only truthful way to deal with it, and not to try and fudge it, because, in the past, that sort of happened. We have used reserves and other means, and to hope it comes right one day. It never does. So for me, I just think you're front-footed and say, as a council, we've understood what's coming at us, but we have to use national information, which is by and large supplied by government agencies. And they've only caught up with this now, and every council in New Zealand will have it. So imagine being in Auckland, that number won't be 2 million, might be 200 million. So that's what I say. So I'm happy about it, but when we go to have to put this into the media, I think it's bloody important that we're not seen to be the bunnies that don't understand what their own game is.
Okay, Murray?
I'm happy about it too, and I'm just thinking of Three Waters where we would be charging depreciation on assets, which may,
correct,
inverted comments transferred. So we're putting a burden on our ratepayers, which may be completely unnecessary if we take a huge amount of our assets out with Three Waters. So I think it's a prudent way to do it.
That is true, but we have to be careful about how we say that, because I mean, that also would look like we're taking money, you know.
Yeah, to give it a pause.
The other reasons that we've got it that I have in here, under the budget costs and funding, there's a few bullet points in there. They are the reasons why we're asking to do this. And also, I think it is a challenge, and I think this is for this financial year, and then next financial year we may have to come back depending on that. But then when we do the next annual plan, which we will start in obviously October, I think there'll be a flow-on effect of that. So you will see, and ratepayers will be having to pay for that increase.
Agreed.
This is just a very short-term measure to get us through this year.
So you're picking option two.
And that's exactly why I supported it, because you need a little bit of lead-in time before you start to accelerate that depreciation, and you can legally elect, as long as you do it consciously, you can legally elect to keep, to not necessarily pay the full depreciation that exists at the current time. So, and a number of councils have done that in the past in relation to utilities, key infrastructure.
Though, because it bites you one day.
Yeah,
it is, and I don't disagree, Tony. I think you're making an absolutely good point, and I think it will happen. It will come. But I think that we need some lead-in time to do that. And this is what this is about, in my opinion. Terry?
Yeah, I don't want to get into the past when we were taking from Peter to give to Paul back in the day. Remember that? So number two of the options you're selecting is the best option.
This is a decision for council to make. Whether, I mean, in the resolution, I have put that we approve the non-funding of depreciation on the increased movement from that proposed in the 21-31 long-term plan. However, you could elect to use some retained earnings to do that, to soften it if you want.
It's only on the increase. We're taking normal depreciation.
It's only on the increase.
Oh,
but Tony made that good point though, that the values have escalated anyway, and the cost of just that additional cost that goes with it for goods and services that's happened in the last year or two. That's, the escalation of costs that we've had. That's just all added to it, but probably around a more realistic figure is what Tony was saying, if I understood you correctly, Tony. That they were valued low anyway.
Through the chair, with the decline in the real estate industry at the moment, 10%, and the next year looking at maybe not a great year, do you see them actually dipping? Well,
it does fluctuate. Some years we have, when we do a revaluation, it actually does go down. Other years it goes up. So there's always a curve like that with the revals. Right. So they do.
But this one's been a bit steeper, isn't it?
The
cost of replacement.
Most of ours is underground. Yeah. Most of ours is infrastructure. So it doesn't.
But land does make a fluctuation, though.
Assets. Yeah. Most.
Okay. Yep.
So the cost of replacement. So if you're only depreciating at current values, you're going to have a shortfall when you come to rebuild. That's
yeah, but if you look at the land price, the land is way out of kilter in New Zealand. The land price is just ridiculous. So that's something that will be a reset for sure.
We're only talking construction costs.
There's no more land. Land's going up.
No.
Keep one land. Can't miss out.
Ridiculous price.
I think so.
Anyway, okay. Well, look,
I moved. Share my preferences too, or staff's preferences too, is to just not fund the unbudgeted portion of depreciation, but because we don't, at this stage, we don't know what our retained earnings will be.
Yeah.
And we have also earmarked some of that for other,
Great.
so in previous meetings, so I think, that would be my preferred and safest option.
Okay, yep.
I'm happy to move
Anybody
on
else have
option
any
two.
questions? Sorry, Martin, what was that, Tony?
I said I'll move option 2.
Well, let's approve the
That's
resolution.
what's in there.
And the resolution,
Murray?
yeah,
The resolution, I'm moving the resolution.
doesn't show in the
So
paper.
I've
but-
moved the resolution. Do I have a seconder? Who
Mario.
seconded?
I'm seconding it.
Okay, thanks, Murray. Appreciate it. Any further discussion?
Yeah, so the
Martin, sorry, you're just slightly out of the picture.
yeah, the reason I
Yeah.
put my hand up, but I think Donna just covered that as far as the retained earnings.
In the resolution.
Yeah, and like you say, there's possible they might be being snapped up by other things, so.
And I think like once we've been through the year-end process and we know exactly what our retained earnings are, when we come and do the annual plan for next year, then we'll be able to talk to you about using that as a source of funding for that plan. So I think that's the best way of dealing with that.
Happy with that.
Okay, excellent. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. 5.2, setting of the rates. So we have the setting of the rates. That's on page 373. What? Hayden. Hello, Hayden. Okay, setting of the rates.
Hey, you're on mute.
Hey, I think I'm going to have to do this bit by bit.
Sorry, guys.
How are you, Hayden? Did you want to make any comment here, Hayden?
No, I'll take the report as read. This is just the standard report we bring to be able to set the rates, to be able to strike the rates. Sorry, yeah.
Right, so there's a pretty substantial number of resolutions. So I'm going to, well, there's really 1, 2 sets the following rate. So it's really just the 2, isn't it, on page 373 that you're looking for to be answered, to be moved and seconded?
I'll move the resolution.
Thank you, Tony.
Second.
Martin seconded. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Donna. Awesome work on the depreciation.
Well done, Hayden.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
Well done, Hayden. Yeah, great work there. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're now down to the Chief Executive Report on 7.1.
Thank you, Mayor Sandra. So, through the chair, just a quick summary. Tried to keep the report fairly slim. We've got some information in here that may be useful around our 3 waters, so definitely have a look at that if you haven't already. The one thing that I didn't include in here, which I should have, it kind of came up timeframe wise, didn't really line up, is the Water Services Entities Bill. So that is the bill to create the 4 entities. And so we are going to do a submission on that. The submission's closed 22nd of July for the select committee. So we are going to do a submission for that. So Leslie Vitus's team and my team through Mo are working together on that and doing the submission around that. So I'll just mention that.
Yeah. Can I briefly?
Yep.
I've just been out of contact way. Did we have any choices on entity B, or we were just, that's it? There was no, we talked about A and B a while ago.
So yeah, through the chair, there was some kind of chatter around that, but generally it was kind of set, the government are doing this. We had a number of things that that Rob tried to work on with central government that, he was pushing quite hard in a couple of different areas, but obviously that didn't really come to pass, unfortunately, which again, I think is around, the government are kind of working away on this. They know what they're doing, but it's important that we try and do what we can to get the best deal we can for our customers now, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And just, and I guess you've always got a situation where there's water from the Waikato going up to Auckland, so crossing over those entity boundaries anyway. So it's not like it's here's A and all the water's going to stay in there and here's B. So
yeah.
Well, nothing changes except that we're competing against 21 other local authorities for work and funding, and with Auckland it would be 5. So
Their voice could have been heard better.
Yeah.
any other matters to raise?
Not really, no, everything else is pretty self-explanatory, the RMO reform, some information on the draft national adaptation plan. And then there's a quick run through on a few of the projects, and then we've got the financials, and that's pretty much it. So happy to take any questions on any of that stuff.
Oh, just good to see the targeting absentee ratepayers stuff there.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
The
Yeah.
Ataki Sugarloaf Wharf, Bruce, it's still waiting for its consent application, is it?
It is, yeah.
So it's down the line. Is that going to be threatened by funding at all or not?
I don't believe so. Lorna's shaking her head, which is positive.
Also, so the way that they, PricewaterhouseCoopers did the business case, and they backed it because of the long time it was going to be into the project over the summer year, but they actually factored higher cost of inflation into the budget, so their contingency is significantly higher.
Okay, yeah.
So any further questions of Bruce? I'm happy to move that we receive the report. Do I have a seconder?
Yes.
Thank you, Robin. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you, Bruce. Excellent. So we now have members' reports. So, Murray.
No, I have nothing to report.
So,
Annie, can I ask for leave of absence from the August meeting, please?
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope to be there in person. Tony.
Not much, just wanted to acknowledge, that we had a community, award thing that we held, last Wednesday.
Volunteers, yeah.
For volunteers, and, yeah, when these people talk about what they do, we often talk about the Thames Coromandel District could not function without volunteers because there are not hundreds of them, there are literally hundreds of them.
Thousands.
And all
Thousands.
doing, some fantastic things, and our community wouldn't be a half what it was without these people. And so some of the stories when these people speak about what they've done, they make you think you haven't done much in your own life. It is fantastic. And for me, just to acknowledge the staff there, particularly Helena, who did a fantastic job of a little audio visual thing playing behind what was going on. Very, very good and very good to be part of it. And probably now for the last time until our next council meeting with the Shore Management thing, I was online for some of them, and obviously I was at the Mercury Bay one. But, for a project that started from nothing to get to where it is, and the actual engagement and buy-in is fantastic. And if there's ever an example on how to achieve things, it's to actually do it with people in the community and letting them loose, because I think what will come to us on our next council meeting, it's exemplary. And yeah, there'll be another time to discuss that, but I've just personally, for those people who contributed to that, say thanks, and that's it for me, thanks.
Thank you, Tony. Gary.
Well, just the only thing, it seems that the vote problem of getting out the voting information to some rate now being solved, 5,200 went out, and if that happen again, they're looking at the issue.
Thank you. Okay, so Martin.
It really just attended the SMP meetings and the public meetings in Thames here. Had some good, robust discussions with the community, and again, it's been a huge amount of work, and I think it's a great process. Looking forward to seeing how that carries on going forward. And Thames Community Board, we had a long meeting last week. We had an update on from Mitch on various initiatives that are going on in the community, which was really good to see some things happening around economic development, and obviously a lot of work in the background around the Puru Marine project. So yeah, very happy to get that over the line at this stage. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Robin.
Thanks, Sandra. Really the only thing to add to the members' reports already about the shoreline management plan public meetings was that I would actually like to acknowledge that most of the meetings have taken place outside of traditional working hours, which has really only resulted because of the flexibility of the staff working on those projects.
Absolutely.
And I've had members of the public congratulate me, I had nothing to do with it, for enabling them to have that opportunity to come without having to take time off work or at least to attend at all. So that's fantastic. The other thing which has been quite exciting and has resulted in quite a lot of chatter amongst our town is that we've now got soft plastic recycling. And I know that Anna has put a lot of work into getting the logistics sorted for that. So that's been a really positive move. I'd like to thank the team for that, because it is a big step forward. And the only other thing that I think is really worth talking about is because there's been lots going on, last Wednesday, the Thames Mountain Biking Club held a film night for the big bike film night, and it was the first time it's been held in Thames. It was really well attended, and I believe that's going to become an annual event, and it was fantastic and full of lots of really crazy ideas of things to do with your bicycle when you're a bit sick of commuting. So fantastic. Thanks, Thames Mountain. They were bold, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Terry.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I attended a Focus Paranua meeting and they wanted to talk about Three Waters, and there was 85 there, are very interested residents, and hear about what's going on with the government and the other changes that are coming down the line. The other one is I'd like to carry on with what Tony and Martin and Robin talking about the shoreline management plans. I've attended Taira and Whangamatā and been really engaging, and I agree with Tony that this has been a fantastic project, really well driven and really well supported, and it'll be great to see this plan finalised and not too far away. So fantastic to the crew. And the other one that's popped up amongst the community is about the speed limits, but I haven't any more than what Ed stuck out about that, but that'll obviously be coming up for a discussion in the not too distant future. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. So I'll just touch on the shoreline management plan as well. So as you'll be, as I think I've reiterated before, that phone conversation seems to be predominant these days, and with constituents. There are some people still a bit concerned around the shoreline management plan. They're happy to be involved in a local context, and the success of the shoreline management planning has been seen to be the fact that it is local, it remains local, and that political voice is kept out of that local flavour. And that's been really a key component of its success. And I just thank the councillors that have consistently attended those meetings and been a part of those meetings, even though there's no speaking at them. I think that's been really important, so that you've been able to witness firsthand how successful that was. The concerns that have risen from locals is that things might be bulldozed through and ignoring their perspectives. So I think that's something that's always going to have to be looked out for. On Kopu, I just want to say that there's been huge strides in the Kopu Marine Servicing Precinct already from local businesses in developing and expanding their businesses. And there are a number of people in there that want to continue to do that. So I see that as becoming a major hub for the district. And I think the success of that project is going to be unfold as time goes on. So I think it's quite an exciting time. And added to that has been the positive involvement of iwi, particularly Ngāti Maru and representatives. And that's just a huge bonus, and they're actively interested in being involved and contributing. So I think that's awesome, and it's a big step forward for us. So apart from that, just look forward to being back in the chamber. And so we now move on. So I'll move in a seconder for the reports.
Yep, I'll move them.
Thank you, Robert, and seconder Murray. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Moving to public excluded. Mover.
Yep, I'll do it.
Thank you, Robin. Seconded Terry. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Good. Thank you. And now we